But and it's not always just about language or stuff. Like when I was at Dana Carvey, we did something about Pat Buchanan eating the heart of an immigrant. We showed him pulling it. He was just eating it. And
this was live footage of him actually eating it.
Yeah. And the standards guy, his issue wasn't, okay, that's too graphic or dirty. He's like, well, you don't have a right to accuse Pat Buchanan of eating the heart of an immigrant. That's not fair to him as a human being. I'm like, are you afraid he's going to sue us? He's no, I don't feel like we should be allowed to say that about this person. So it's you never know what's going to push the button.
And this is still when your stand-up is primarily, absurd, but inspired, but, noise-based and a lot of, right? I mean, I'm not being condescending.
No, not at all. Of course not.
But the greatest moment of this type of style backfiring, which I thought was an important moment, was when Dana Carvey got the variety show.
Yeah.
And Smigel was the head writer, and he brought you guys in.
Yep.
And you wrote that sketch, that opening piece.
The nipples thing, yeah.
That really was like a thing where like it sort of resonates all the way through to Conan, not functioning the way the network wanted to in the Tonight Show slot.
Right.
Was that here Dana Carvey had a primetime show and he brought in you guys who were a late night operation.
Yep.
And you guys struggled over that sketch. And what was it again?
It was just this weird idea that I had on the way to work one morning that Bill Clinton had surgery so that he had nipples going down so that he could breastfeed. The first idea was just that he could breastfeed.
Right.
And then I thought then he would have nipples going down his belly and like a puppy, like a dog.
Yeah.
And
you got to work around Carvey, who was an impressionist.
Yeah.
That's
I
who
think
you were
that's why I
writing
said
for.
Bill Clinton.
Right, right, of course.
But I also did like the idea of Bill Clinton breastfeeding a baby.
Right.
Like on national TV to show that he was nurturing.
Right. So it was a good-hearted idea, but it was the opening sketch for the first show, was it not?
Yeah, and it shouldn't have been. I mean, I argued against it being the opening sketch because I thought it's going to kill us. But the network really wanted Dana to do an in-one. It was like just this thing where they wanted a thing where Dana, in a character, talks to a camera. And it's the only option we gave them that had that.
The only option you gave him was that Bill Clinton opens his shirt. He has puppy nipples. He has dog nipples.
Yeah, and there's milk spurting out of them onto live puppies and squirting them in the face, and kittens on his desk.
And what was the blowback from that?
Really scared the shit out of people. It really bummed people out. Because we were on right after Tim Allen's show. We were on it. We were not a late night show.
Yeah.
We were on at fucking 8:30.
Yeah.
Or 8 o'clock. I think we were on like it was something crazy, like, what are you doing?
Mm-hmm.
And I learned a lot from that whole experience. It was a terrible, terrible experience. I hated it. I hated being
What
on
did
that
you
show.
learn?
I just learned that you can't force people to like something if it's not what they want. I mean, it's not. Why were we trying to make these people? We would get these letters that were heartbreaking.
Really?
That really hurt my feelings. Like people that are really like just were so upset by what we did.
But in that sense, though, like you and Dino and Robert, though Robert is. He's a little more cartoon thinking, but I mean, wasn't that part of the agenda? Was it to push the envelope?
Well, when we did the show, ABC had NYPD Blue on the air, and they had created something new in television, which was a watershed hour. That in British television they have a watershed hour.
Right.
After a certain hour, you can do absolutely anything you want. Nudity, doesn't matter, because they just figure kids have gone to sleep. That's how they handle it.
Yeah.
If you're dirty, you go after watershed. Well, ABC started saying words like shit and asshole on NYPD Blue. That was brand new.
Yeah.
So I think actually we were on honestly, I think we were on 9 o'clock because we were right before NYPD Blue.
Right.
And so that's what they said. You're the first show before that time, so you can be really edgy. We want you to get in trouble. We want you to make waves. That's what they told us.
The wrong group of guys to do that.
So we came on. I was actually the head writer, and Robert was the executive producer. He wanted to make me head writer because he wanted to be on. He was in the cast. He wanted to be able to do both. And but then after we signed during the summer that we developed the show, ABC was sold to Disney. That's when that happened.
Right.
ABC was bought by Disney, and so we all of a sudden everything changed.
Yeah.
And they said they didn't stop saying you're on before NYPD Blue. They started saying you're on right after Tim Allen. That became the focus of the show.
Right.
And they put Dana on a huge 2-page ad in TV Guide with his arm around Kermit the Frog.
Oh my God!
A picture he never posed for.
Yeah.
And he was furious.
Yeah.
And they the expectation for the show was it's going to be very sweet. And Dana's a sweet guy. He's not a guy. He's not a guy you think of as irreverent.
Well, when you were trying to sell him on the breastfeeding thing, what was that like?
He loved it. I mean, Dana was a gamer. I loved him.
Yeah,
Dana's a great guy, and he's an enormously talented, just funny actor, and he's got old chops. He's a real traditional. He's like Sid Caesar or something.
Right.
I thought the show had great potential because of what he could do and what he was willing to do.
Yeah,
he was willing to do anything.
Right. And I think
I was wondering if you would comment about your time with the Dana Carvey Show, talk about any creative process or anecdotes that you have from that. And secondly, the way that show was handled, did that impact what you fight for with creative control, or what sort of impact that had?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, that show was a really difficult time for me. It was bad. I mean, I hated it. And it's a good show, but I had a hard time. Dana was, hot coming out of SNL, and ABC gave him a show and said, we want you to be edgy and irreverent and be really out there. And then while we were starting to produce the show, ABC was bought by Disney, like literally in the middle of our pre-production. And then a whole different group of people came and said, they put Dana on the cover of TV Guide with Kermit the Frog with his arm around Kermit the Frog. And he never posed for that picture. Dana was furious to see himself, with his arm around Kermit the Frog. Like him and Kermit were at the China Club, and then somebody came over and he goes, oh yeah. And that was it. The show had such a, it was everything we did made somebody mad. But I did learn from that. One thing I learned was that there wasn't any need for us to be we were on primetime television. The show was like at 9 o'clock at night on ABC. It was just a mistake. Those people didn't want to see us. And I read letters, like handwritten letters by people. There was no email then. You got handwritten letters from old ladies saying, you hurt my feelings. And, I learned from that kind of like, you got to go where you're wanted, So I'm on FX, and it's, I remember when I was trying to find out the line was on FX, I was watching The Shield. And there is a scene where a woman has been raped and murdered, and somebody says, oh, and he ejaculated on her stomach. And then they zoom in to a pool of jizz on a dead lady's stomach. And a friend of mine, Vernon Chapman, who's a great comedy guy, he said you should, because we're not allowed to show boobs on the show, he said you should have a shot of a woman who's naked and cover her boobs with the jizz on the stomach of a dead lady. Like, this is okay. Beautiful, life-giving breasts are not okay. The mother's milk, gorgeous. Michelangelo made us cry when he painted them, not okay. Jizz on the stomach of a dead woman. Totally. Why are you even asking? So when I should be on a network that lets you do that. This show should never be on anywhere else. If I got some weird call from an NBC saying we want it, I'd say, no, you're fucking wrong. People who watch your network don't want this. It's not fair to them. So I kind of learned that from Dana Carvey. That was a hard show to work on, though. It was just a lot of hours. I was there all night, every night. I cried like a lot on that show. Like I wept like a baby from exhaustion and just pressure. It was hard. And I was in my 20s. I was like 25 years old. So it was a lot, and I was the head writer. It was a lot of pressure. I'm glad I did it. It's a huge education.
Yeah.
No, then I wrote on Dana Carvey had a show, and I wrote on there.
Yeah, so you start to become this writing guy, and everyone wants you. But that was a weird decision. You decided to write for Dana Carvey. You had a choice. You could write for Chris Rock, which was he was doing a show for HBO.
That's right.
Or you could write for Dana Carvey
on ABC.
You took the ABC network gig, and that was one of the biggest mistakes of your life.
Terrible mistake.
Why was it a mistake?
Well, I got to do both, because what happened was Chris called me, and he said, "You want to write for me?" He said, "I have a show on HBO. I don't know what the show is, but I will hire you today, and it's your show.
Wow.
And I'll just be the guy on the camera."
That's a little too much pressure.
I completely trust you to make this a great show. It's HBO. We can do what we want. You'll make a lot of money, and we'll have fun.
Right.
And Robert Smigel was calling me saying, we're putting a show together for Dana. It's on ABC. It's going to be a sketch comedy.
Right.
And I took the Dana show.
Because of money?
Partly because of money and partly because it was ABC. I just thought it was just, it was glammy. It looked like.
When you get an AB, and Dana Carvey was hot
Chris,
as a pistol.
I was like, Chris is funny. He's a great stand-up, but what's he going to do for a TV show? He's not going to be like, good on a TV show. Fuck that. And he called me like 3 times.
But isn't that too much pressure for you? A guy calls you up and says, do me a favor. Create a whole show for me. I'll do whatever the fuck you say.
Yeah, probably was a little bit. I probably wasn't sure what I was going to do.
If he called you and said, I have an idea for a show, and that might have been a better pitch,
maybe.
Right? Yeah.
Maybe. But Dana's show, I was also going to be the head writer, and I was excited to try that.
Big payday on that, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that was pretty good money.
What kind of money are we talking about?
I think... Christ, I don't know what that was. Maybe $10,000 a week or something.
And your agent probably says at the time, do you have agents, or are you one of those?